Hello and welcome back. This is ProTaleDev back with another Game Jam video, and what we're going to do is I'm going to show you that I'm currently taking part in a Game Jam which is the Jame Gam, which is an interesting title for this Game Jam, but essentially I'm taking part in it along with 23 others, and this is a rated one, so at the very end you will be able to rate it, and I just want to talk about what I've been doing so far. So this is the first day. Technically, as you can see by this counter, this is actually the second. So this game jam actually lasts 5 days. So it's from April the 23rd to April the 28th. So it's 5 days. However, I actually missed a day because I was very busy. So I've only had 4 days so far. And now that the first day is over, it's almost over, I kind of want to show what I've done for it. So, first thing I'm going to show is this Game Jam's theme and special feature. So that it was the theme is highly flammable or explosive, and the special feature is totally normal water. So with that theme, I started to kind of come up with a bunch of different ideas. So let's go straight to Unity. Okay, and so we're in Unity. And after a couple of planning sessions, I actually wanted to get straight into this. I don't have a whole lot of time. The reason I chose 5 days is really because I wanted that extra time. So I wasn't quite sure I'd have enough time this week and next week to be able to get a game jam done. So I gave myself quite a lot of time. So first thing I'm going to show you is, again, this day one. So technically for me, this is day one. And as you can see, I've got a bunch of scripts. These scripts... I've spent pretty much the whole time writing scripts for the first day. I kind of do, this is a very common thing if you've seen any of my previous videos on game jams. I usually get the code down before anything else, usually because I have a good idea of what I will need. Most scripts are just standard utility scripts, like scripts that just add a little bit of quality of life to things, so like the random rotate, random size, continuous rotation, and destroy. But there's a couple of things that come with the idea of the game, so like this wave system, being able to switch, this link, which I'll talk about the links in a second, but basically everything, I just got all the scripts and the codes down. Actually, let's talk about the link now. So the title of the game is called Soul Link, and this is going to match very well with the theme. So the way this is going to work is you'll have a specific enemy. In fact, actually, let's just show you what it looks like, what I have right now. So we have here an enemy that is currently has a health bar and is currently chasing us. What we can actually do is we can soul link. So there you go. What I've done there is I've soul linked to this individual. You can also see at the bottom there's this timer, which will allow us to be able to see when it ends. But if we just do this soul link again, it actually can stretch as far as you want. It's a soul link, so it's really it can stretch out. Doesn't matter where you are once you've linked. And this is going to be very important for some of the mechanics of this game. I've really not focused on any looks for this game. The looks haven't been too important. I really want to focus on the looks in a separate day, and I wanted to get the gameplay down and the basics down first. So at the moment you don't take damage, but you will take damage. I've got a health bar here, and I've also got 2 zeros here, which is actually to do with the wave system that's going to be available. You'll see over here that we have a separate object here and another separate object up here. These are not enemies. Even though they have health bars above them, they're not enemies. Let's link with this. These are actually different types of objects that you're going to interact with, which have different mechanics. So this one is going to be a crystal which spawns enemies that will continuously try and chase you and attack you. And the only way to stop it is to destroy it. And on the right, what we have is this is going to be a trap, and the opposite of what it actually is going to do. Even though it's a trap, it's actually going to do the very opposite of damaging you. It's actually going to be used as a way of healing yourself. So the whole point of this is that you will be transferring damage through this soul link to these objects. And in turn, any damage they take through, say, the traps will also heal you if you're soul linked to them. So we have our 3 different effects, which is enemy, crystal, and trap. As I've just mentioned, those are the 3 things I've got so far. You can actually switch by pressing right mouse click. You can actually switch between them. But you won't be able to you can activate them whenever you want, but if you're not close enough to them, they will you just waste the charge. So what we're going to do here is quickly soul link and then bring them to this area here. This will begin damaging the enemy. So this is actually ties in with the theme of the game jam, which is flammable water. So you soul link to this, and then when you go into the water, they will begin taking damage. Presumably there'll be like a fire effect around the enemy to show that you are transferring it. However, if you go into this water while you're not soul linked, it'll actually damage you. Again, I haven't done that yet, but what will happen is if you're not soul linked, it will begin to damage you. And I think this is a good way to try and keep the player constantly aware of their timer and how long they're spending in. So maybe they'll just want to jump in there, then jump out. And then try and loop around. Ideally they won't be standing still anyway, but I think it could be quite a fun effect. So there we go, we got an enemy. Let's continue over here. It's about to run out and then you jump out. So I imagine there's a bunch of different enemies. That's just a random glitch at the moment. I'll fix that another time. So I'm just trying to at the moment get them closer and closer to death before I switch over to a different effect. And then what I'm going to do is, and there we go, so they should disappear now, and then they're dead. So that's basically what the enemy's going to do, is they're going to try and damage you, they're going to try and attack you, and any damage you take if you're soul linked, you will still lose health even if you've got the soul link active with an enemy. However, when you soul link and you go into this water, which is flammable, it will set them on fire and damage them. What about the crystal? As I mentioned, this does work. You can get them, I think, through this wall, but you have to be in a certain distance in order to soul link. So the distance really is important. So we gotta wait now. But you should be able to... Oh, sorry, this was the trap, not the crystal. Again, these will all look different. There's no models at the moment, but I will sort them out probably in the next day. So as you can see, we're soul linking now. It's a different color. If we try and switch to a different one, it'll say that there's nothing because there's no enemies, and I haven't coded it so that to detect if things are only, if they're not null, then to be active. But essentially what would happen there is nothing. Again, if we try and activate the crystal, it doesn't work. If we switch to the green, which is our trap, this is a trap, so we can link to it. You'll also notice that the colour is different now, so I've coded that in. And what we're going to look at now is the final one, which is our crystal. So again, crystal is working. Again, you can go any distance you want, but you will need to go into the water to do damage. And this can be quite difficult. The crystal does last longer, but this means you're going to have to... The crystal doesn't move like enemies do. So you're going to have to travel to the nearest water and do damage. Again, still issues because I haven't finished everything, but essentially what the trap's going to do, as opposed to the crystal, is the crystal, the issue with it is you're going to have to, because it stays stationary, you're going to have to go across the map to go to the water and avoid enemies. If you switch link, if you switch to a different, like an enemy or a trap while you're linked to a previous one, it'll disable the link, so it'll overwrite it, meaning you're going to have to be very careful. And again, the trap, the whole point of it is if you link to an enemy, if you link to a trap and an enemy is attacking you, then you will start to heal. I'm not sure how effective the healing should be or whatnot, because it could be too powerful, we'll see. But I just know the traps are going to actually heal you, not damage you. At least if you're linked and using the enemy to get hurt by the trap. Okay, so that's the main aspect of the game. Now what I'm going to talk about is the coding. So as you can see, they've all got their own health, and the coding is very simple. It's coding that I've shown in the past. So we have a detection for the closest enemy, closest crystal, and closest trap. We can use this effectively anywhere in our game, and we can just find what's closest to the enemy. This is our main use for the soul link script. But before I talk about that, I'm going to talk about the wave system. I'm not going to go into too much detail how this works because I've actually covered it before in the Corrupting Spring, which I went in great details on that, on how the wave system works. But essentially all it's doing is just spawning an enemy at, when it's the wave system game object has been set active. It just starts spawning enemies until the crystal has been destroyed. Next we have this billboard health, and all this is doing is just making sure the camera, making sure the canvas on enemies that are inside the world, so the health bars, are actually facing the camera. Next we have the enemy health. Again, really simple code, just detecting if there is water burn and that there is a link, and this is coming from the soul link script, which is the main script for this game so far, and it's just checking if the water burn effect and a link has been found, and if we're in range. This is a little bit interesting. I want to explain this. So right here we've got a distance detection of between two objects. This is this current object, which is the enemy, or the enemy's health, and the player. Now I'm also checking if it's equal to the distance of the player and the closest object, which is the enemy. This might sound like I'm just comparing it to itself, but what I'm actually doing is comparing it to itself from two different objects' distance. So the distance should still be the same on each side, but that's kind of the point. And this makes it so that we definitely know which enemy we're locked onto. If the lock has been determined, then we start doing damage. Otherwise, the effect ends after a certain amount of time anyway. So that's the health. We have the player movement, which is standard. It allows you to jump, move around, and then if you hit a specific trigger, then it'll do a certain effect like the water burn, and can shoot if an enemy is hitting. Again, movement control, which this is simply using the nav mesh to allow enemies to move around. So if I quickly turn on, so what we got here is we got our nav mesh agent, and again, I'm not going to explain too much, but then we also have our nav mesh, which is what determines where our enemies can go. So where the AI can travel. As you can see, they can't travel on the walls, but they can travel on the ground. This is a much more simplistic version of A-Star, but it works perfectly fine. Next thing to show is, again, we've got all of our basic property kind of scripts, which is simply rotations and resizing randomly. And we got our basic player score, which is at the moment it's just enemies alive and enemies dead score. I'm not sure if I want too much of a score in this game because I've been doing scores for pretty much almost every game jam, and I kind of want to go for a little bit more of a no score kind of effect, but specifically something that the player doesn't have to worry about, which rather they've just got to survive and get to the end. I might get rid of it, we'll see. Then finally we have the player health, which is very standard, and the options menu. Don't think there's much more. Oh yes, so we do have a switch link, which is just when you press right mouse click, it just switches and disables a in-game orb, which allows the player to see which one is active. And for the most part, that is all I've done for the first day. So again, I'm going to quickly show it before I end it here. And as you can see, we can link to our enemy. If I activate it, we can go and do damage to them. You gotta be very careful. We can keep linking to them. The enemy can find us using the nav mesh. We can change to a specific soul link type and then start doing effects like this. You can also link to these crystals through walls if you want, and you can use this as a strategy for certain places. But the only way to do damage is to actually go into the water, into the flammable water, and burn your enemies. So that's what I've done for the first day, and I think this is shaping up to be a very unique game. Next I'll be working on trying to get the level actually built out a little bit more, and finishing some of the mechanics a little bit more, refining them a little bit more. So yeah, this has been ProTaleDev, and I'll see you next time.